Today, we're going to take a look at this word that you hear almost every day on the TV, people talking. The word is Nazi. That's Nazi. What really are we saying when we say the word Nazi? Today, it seems to be taken lightly, but yet its impact seems to be pretty dramatic in some of the violent actions that are conducted in our country every single week. The word Nazi is actually derived from the German organization called the National Socialist German Workers' Party. That was formed for the purpose of social revolution in Germany after its Great Depression and the effects of World War I in the 1920s, basically about 100 years ago. It was originally designed to be somewhat of a race based group. In fact, it was essentially using its political influence, as small as it was during the time of Chancellor Hindenburg, was to literally promote the greatness of the German people and any ethnic group that was not 100% Teutonic. In other words, principally the Jewish people that lived in Germany. It was a whole concept of race baiting. It was all about race. All the subjects that they talked about was founded on the race issue, the race issue, the race issue. Whether it was you were a German, a non-German, whether you were a non-German living in Germany, and it went on and on and on. Whether certain jobs should be left only to Germans, certain jobs only to the literally the lower race baiting groups. Huh. And so the first principle of Nazism was race baiting. The second principle of Nazism was a strong centralized government. It was important to build a big government. After World War I, Germany, of course, was very restricted about its government as far as the size of its army, as far as the size of any of its political activities that could possibly result in another war machine. And so when they were setting up strong subgroups outside of the government that could be easily slid into the government so that it could be expanded overnight. In other words, kind of privatization of money that was to be used for the purposes of building a huge central government. One of the foundations of their growth in race baiting was to pick out a group that people were somewhat hesitant about, somewhat not happy with, and that was the Jewish population in Germany. And it also could be expanded to its surrounding countries, such as Czechoslovakia and the Sudetenland and Poland, etc. Anyway, the bottom line was they picked out a group to pick on because that would give them strength in proving how important their group, race baiting group, was over Judaism and Jews. Jews were picked out. They had to be marked. They literally had stars on their chests and everything else. And then eventually, when Hitler finally took power of Germany, literally put into concentration camps. And those concentration camps had showers that sadly killed over 6 million innocent Jews because they were Jews. You talk about race baiting, you can't think of a worse example of race baiting. Well, maybe in Russia, but certainly in Germany and in Europe, this was the worst example of picking out a race to generally centralize the force of their people, the German people, against one group of people, the Jews. Then they had to have something else for him to get to power because Hitler was not as popular as people may think as they look back in history. And they had to have a very soft media. When I mean the term soft media, it would be that they would be very sympathetic to the word Nazi. In fact, explain and support what the word Nazi meant because they were protecting Germany. They were protecting the original people of their country. And so the media was very much a tool for Hitler's power. And it goes all the way through the literally the unbelievable propaganda put out by Joseph Goebbels, which was eventually, when he became in the government, became the propaganda minister. And literally the media just kind of rolled from being soft on Nazi, the word Nazi, to being literally the arm of the Nazi party. And the Nazi party then eventually took control of Germany with the silence and support of the media, with the utilization of race baiting against the Jewish people. It began to shift people toward their idea, and they utilized a few of the socialist concepts, that is, of really helping all people, regardless of their financial condition. Mottos like a VW in every house, medicine for everyone, and food for all, even those that are hungry, became common propaganda tools used, promoted through the media to get people to become Nazis. And Nazis, through these means and through all this supportive government thing, really, when you look at it, this was not and never was intended to be a conservative movement, a right-wing movement. No. It was a socialist movement that literally would grab its arms around people and say, this is the only answer you have. And that's essentially what happened. The news media, the race baiting, the picking out a race to attack for unification, the free stuff, the freebies, all of a sudden, they had control of Germany. It took a while. It literally, as far as being total control, it took them about 8-10 years to really gain the total strength of Germany. And that word Nazi became synonymous with Germany, Nazi Germany. And literally, the word became the power of literally a small group of people who had grabbed or taken control of the actions of many. So when you look back at that word Nazi, which was really the National Socialist German Workers' Party, which was a race-baiting concept focused on a hatred of Jews, supporting larger government, utilizing very soft media, and eventually using that media as propaganda, and also free stuff, which really packaged up their needs, and essentially be creating violence in the society through riots, book burning, destruction of military control of certain things, even the police. All of a sudden, this movement took over an entire continent. The word Nazi became the word that controlled the continent of Europe from a left point of view, from a central government point of view, from a race baiting, hating of Jewish people point of view, to literally controlling an entire continent and probably further. So should it not been for some very aggressive coordination with the United States and the UK. And so I ask you, when you see or hear someone say the word Nazi, look at them carefully. Is this person using the word Nazi truly as it was created and was utilized in the 20th century? Or is this a misrepresentation of the word Nazi? Then I ask you the second question. If you add up the variables that constitute how the word Nazi was developed, the variables that we've already discussed, which political party in the United States supports many, if not all, of the issues that the Nazi Party utilized to gain party power over Europe? Which one? It's kind of a frightening thing, isn't it, when you see history repeat itself? And we have to be so careful of the words we use, because those words may well be the path that we choose in our life. So when someone uses the word Nazi, look at them very carefully, because you know what that word means now. Just like when someone uses the word democracy, who doesn't know that this country has never been a democracy, never was a democracy, and never will be a democracy. Ignorance is not bliss. This is a serious time, and Nazi is a word that should be looked at carefully every time someone utilizes it and you hear it, because they are telling you something about the future. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Jim Whining. I'm the president and bishop of Acts Ministry, but I'm just an ordinary guy, just like everybody else. Have a great day. God bless you now.